Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Top 10 edition of Magic Mics, proudly sponsored by our Patreon supporters and CoolStuffInc.com, where you can find cool stuff in stock every day. And check out our co-sponsor, CardHoarder.com, offering the best inventory prices and delivery of cards for Magic Online. Check out our Altar Sleeve. Support the show by using the code MAGICMICS at checkout for 5% off anything in the store. I'm Evan Irwin, and we get started each week by saying hello to my two co-hosts, MTG Nerd Girl.
Hey guys, welcome back.
Back in action. Ruben Bressler.
Good afternoon. Good to see you.
Yeah.
How are you feeling, everybody, after your long day trips and also surgeries?
Well, so you said good to see you. I can't really see you. It's a little fuzzy, but like I can vaguely tell which of you is which.
There's a Rube
It's the
shape
hair.
and an Evan shape, right.
One of us is vaguely browner on top and on the bottom, so...
There's hues. It's fine. It's cool. Well, we also begin with our choice of the top comment from last week, or rather the week before that, in a segment we call...
show.
That's right, the most recent show. And a segment we call Honorable Mention, where Ruben will tell us who is the most eloquent and letting us know what card we did not choose is one of our retro top 10 new Phyrexia cards. Ruben?
Well, I had a friend who used to call Gataxian Probe Gatation Probe, or Jutation Probe.
Mm-hmm.
And so... that reminds me of this username. Now, how would you say we pronounce this username? We've got two G's in it. I'm going to say Gragus.
I would say Gragus.
But it could be Dragus.
Or Gragus.
Gragus or Dragus. Anyway, this person, underscore MTG, we'll go with Gragus. Gragus MTG writes, there are so many things that I love about new Phyrexia. One of my favorite cards from the set is an EDH and kitchen table powerhouse. There is nothing quite like playing a go-wide strategy with friends only to prove that your hordes will triumph. Triumph of the hordes will complete all of your friends. Long live Phyrexia.
So this $15+ uncommon, made in a world before they decided to stop printing overruns that were ridiculous, is ridiculous. And we continue to wait for a reprint, probably in this year's double master set, is my guess. Triumph of the Hordes is 2 green, 2 generic mana for an uncommon sorcery that says, until end of turn, creatures you control get +1/+1 and gain trample and infect, meaning creatures with infect deal damage to creatures in the form of -1/-1 counters and to players in the form of poison counters. This just ends games in Commander or in any other older format. 10 poison counters is GG, no matter how you slice it.
Yeah, this card is absurd. I used to have it in my Arcades deck, and it was too powerful. It was too good. Any deck that like tries to attack to win in Commander, which that sounds simplistic, there aren't actually that many. Most of them are like, I'm going to combo off and, clear everything off the board with a Cyclonic Rift, and then I'm the only person that ever gets to play spells for the rest of the game. There aren't a ton of decks that are just like 2-drop, 3-drop attack you. But any of those decks, if they have this in it, this card is better than most of the banned cards in Commander.
Those tempo decks will sometimes catch you off guard too, because a lot of times they don't have time to get to the Cyclonic Rifts and other things. So cards that help with that sort of archetype is always very nice.
Yeah, cards that basically take the rules and just really bend them in ways that can't be unbent because you're playing Commander and not a constructed format, quote unquote. Well, they're winners, and congratulations to Gragus_MTG. Please contact us on social media, ideally on Twitter DMs for your prize. That's the ideal place to go. Thanks again to CoolStuffInc.com for sponsoring this giveaway, and stay tuned for our top 10 list this week, and maybe you can win next week's free gift certificate, because it's time to talk about our top 10 lizard and dinosaur cards. A ton of cards from sets that maybe didn't get all the love they should have gotten the first time around.
I like dinosaurs.
I think that a lot of these got some love. It took a while for dinosaurs to be good.
I think by love, I mean sales. By love, I mean
true.
Buy booster packs of the sets with the cards in them.
Your statement of it took a while for them to get good, and that's just because a lot of these were not dinosaurs before Ixalan, right? Yeah. Like, so when you type into the search engine dinosaurs, there's things on there that are just not dinosaurs because they went back, sort of like the Phyrexians. They went back and fixed them to make the archetype more fleshed out. And I think that's really neat. And I think dinosaurs are kind of a fan favorite of everybody's.
It also took Wizards a while to be like, we are embracing dinosaurs as a thing that we can have. Like they always were like, we can be fantasy, but we can't be historical in some way. I think was the kind of holdup with dinosaurs. But then they were like, no, these are big lizard things. People love Tyrannosaurus Rexes. Like, what are we doing? Right. So I'm glad that we have dinosaurs in Magic. I think it makes perfect sense.
I think that it took them getting comfortable, with both, sort of a historical creature animal in the real world, but also the idea that they can make sort of enough copyrightable names and or sort of the culture of the place that can be uniquely for them. That said, let's get started with our number 10. Ruben, what you got?
My number 10 starts off with a card that, every uncard is a joke, but this one is 30 jokes, and it's great, and I love it. My number 10 is Old Fogey.
Mm-hmm.
Old Fogey was originally from Unhinged, reprinted and unsanctioned. It's a 7/7 summon dinosaur. It's still a summon. It's not a creature dinosaur. For green, and it has the following abilities. It has phasing. It has cumulative upkeep 1. It has Echo of green. It has Fading 3. It has Bands with Other Dinosaurs, Protection from Hominids, Snow-Covered Planeswalk, Flanking, and Rampage 2, which are all abilities that aren't around or don't exist, and it's hilarious.
Snow-covered plains specifically, which is not like a thing you really need snow covered for typically, especially now that Faceless Haven's not a thing. But that's a nice touch when that was printed.
Yeah, the funny one, I guess, there's part of the jokes in this is that they actually did bring back phasing, and then I think phasing is kind of like gotten a lot better and more interesting these days. But all the rest of them are just like hilariously bad. You're never going to see flanking. You're never going to see Rampage X come back. Oh my God, what a terrible mechanic.
Yeah,
very funny.
It is interesting that we have phasing. We got snow-covered lands back,
right?
And we also reprinted Echo again, I think, since Old Fogey was printed the first time.
I believe so. Yeah.
So we some of these happen again.
You can get there. Nerd Girl, what's number 10?
All right. So my number 10 is kind of a bit of a controversial card that's come out in the last year or so, 2 years, and that is Karuga, the Companion. This is a 5 mana, 4/5 legendary creature, Dinosaur Hippo. Dinosaur Hippo is a sweet creature type.
Pretty good.
This companion, your starting deck contains only cards with converted mana cost 3 or greater, and lands. When Garuda enters the battlefield, draw a card for each other permanent you control with converted mana cost 3 or greater. This card is super fun to build around in Limited. It saw some play in Constructed. It's still sort of a fringe card. It's still in the cube and works amazingly well with Scoots. Scoot Swarm, and they are copies, so they still have the mana cost, and you actually get to draw cards for all of your Scoots. And my favorite thing, plus it's a Dinosaur Hippo, so it has to be on my list.
The old Scoots Magoots.
Yep.
I'm telling you, every day that goes by, we are closer to calling it the Companion scale and not the Storm scale for mistakes in Magic. This was one of the more interesting companions when the set first came out to build around and have hang out as your 8th card you had forever. And you would draw some cards off of it while also being a 5 and a 5 for it, which was also fantastic. So
absolutely,
it was fun for that.
Good stuff. This one was one of the ones that saw a little bit of competitive play, primarily in the blue. They basically red, white, blue, although they could use all 5 colors, Fires of Invention decks. This was a very powerful tool alongside Fires of Invention to be able to, turn 5, you'd play Karuga, draw a card or 2, dig for one of your Cavaliers or one of your Kenriths, and go to town. So this one saw a little bit of play. Very good in the cube. Very good with things like Bone Crusher Giant and things that have smaller abilities attached to their main casting costs. Brazen Borrower, stuff like that. So very good card.
Yeah. Super cool card. Again, companions just being just a hot, gross mess from start to finish. But I like the card, I really do. For my number 10 here, I am a simple man. I see keywords. I like keywords. I see large mana costs. I like big numbers in the bottom right. And sometimes you just need to play a giant monster of pain and crush your opponent with them, such as Zetalpa Primal Dawn. It speaks to all of my Timminess. My inner Timmy lives for cards like these. 2 white, 6 generic mana. Bring me that 8 mana legendary Elder Dinosaur. It's a 4/8. But it's really an 8/8. Hold on. It's got flying, double strike, vigilance, trample, and indestructible. It's coming to get you. It's not tapping. It don't care. It has trample and double strike. It's scary. It's sweet. It's great. And it's like 29 cents. So you can have your coffee whenever you want.
It's a great one.
Yeah.
I like giant dinosaurs. I like white. I like that they fly. And this is a card that, though it wasn't super feasible and limited all the time, you're definitely gonna die to it a lot more than you'd like, and it's super fun to play.
I definitely lost to it at the Rivals of Ixalan Loading Ready Run pre-release when
Nice.
I was like, well, I've answered most of the threats in Kathleen's deck. I can't do anything else. And then Zetalpa happened, and then I lost.
I feel
that
this
card
card
is very difficult to deal with in a lot of circumstances.
Yeah, this card to me is, if it had haste, I know it's not a white thing, but if it had haste, this card would be like $25-$30. As it is, it's a cool threat. It's interesting. It's scary, but you got a whole turn to figure out what you want to do with it. That said, let's move on here to number 9. Mine is higher on somebody else's list. Ruben, what's your number 9?
My number 9 is in argument for the worst Magic card printed in the last, the worst creature printed in the last, I'll say, 20 years.
Okay.
So it's on your list, clearly, as your top
It's
10.
on my list because it is also a very unique effect. We've never seen it printed again. It's from Odyssey and has never been reprinted.
Mm-hmm.
But the sentence of the ability that it has, I like from a theoretical game design standpoint, but it is very bad and very stupid. And if I was opening a pack of Odyssey and the rare in my pack was Obstinate Familiar, I would be beside myself with anger. I would say, why is this 1/1 for 1 red mana that says, if you would draw a card, you may skip that draw instead, a rare? Just very bad. Just a very bad Magic card.
Yeah, this is one of those cards that makes a lot of the worst cards ever made list. It is a $20 foil because Odyssey is old.
Okay.
Lol. First of all, lol. And, this is one of those cards that you want to say exists because there's a point in time in which this will be relevant. And ever since 2001, we've still been waiting for that relevance to show up. Yeah. 19 years and counting.
Maybe you mill out late game.
20 years and counting.
Maybe you put these in the sideboard against traumatized decks. I don't know.
Right.
Okay.
Listen, people used to cast Stroke of Genius for 50 to win the game. I understand that there's a use for this card. That does not mean that the card, even as a 1-mana 1/1, is good.
Yeah,
you need to give us something else.
Yeah, this is the type of card that should be a 1 red enchantment with something else on it that requires mana payment or life payment.
Or a 2/1.
Or something that doesn't suck. That would be cool too. I'd be all right with that. Nerd Girl, what's number 9?
I am gone for the next 3. I will see you guys again at 6.
Woo! All right, next 3 it is. Mine's not quite that bad, but it is a little rough. Let's move here to number 8. I'll go ahead and talk about my number 8. I love this silly card. It's cool. It's a throwback. It was an exciting rare. It was an exciting uncommon that I thought was going to be rare because of how sweet it was at the time. Back in the day, it was a snake. And these days, it's an elf, lizard, wizard. And who doesn't love elf, lizard, wizards? It's a Frilled Mystic. That's all I'm saying. Yeah. Frilled Mystic is 2 blue, 2 green for a 3/2 uncommon elf, lizard, wizard with flash. And when it enters the battlefield, you may counter target spell. Bam. That's what it does.
I don't think I saw this on the list when I was looking at it. I definitely would have put this on there. This was a key piece of the tempo counter deck. What was it called? Only play
Simic
stuff on your opponent's
Flash.
turn. Yeah,
Simic
Simic Flash deck. Annoying, but it was really cool to see an uncommon like this make such an impact because you're just like counter your whole turn and then also get to beat you for extra, and it's a lizard wizard, which is just really fun to say. I love it.
It's true.
I really enjoy how they leaned into the weird with Simic, because Simic was always like, we are mad scientists, but it never really felt comedic in a lot of ways. And they did it with the creature types. If you see 3 creature types on a card, it's a Simic creature, right? Elf, lizard, wizard, jellyfish, hydra, beast, right? Like if you slap 3 wildly different
Shark
creatures.
to crab.
What? Shark to crab, exactly.
Shark crab.
If you slap 3 wildly different creature types, it's either from an unset or it's Simic. And I love that they leaned into that.
I'm just honestly shocked this wasn't a rare, because I think it's cool enough to be a rare. It's exciting enough to be a rare. It's a callback to a really sweet rare from back in the day, from when Apocalypse was Mystic Snake. Is that right?
Yeah.
There you go. Ruben, what's number 8?
Well, I also wanted to add that the little frilly guys are like some of my favorite dinosaurs. I forget what they're called, but the
ones that spit at people in the movies.
The one that spit at what was his name? Brad Knight.
Was that
Brian
was that
Knight?
Xena or a dinosaur? I don't know.
Spat at Newman, right? Yeah.
He spat at Newman, yeah. See,
Right.
what happened was I took my earplugs out when I tried to make frilly noises. Anyway, my next card, listen. Ruben did some BS here. I look forward to your letters. You're gonna hate me because
Here
this
we
is
go.
you're not gonna like me, all right? But here's the deal. If I'm dying and what is killing me are dinosaurs, and the word Allosaurus is in your name, the card that is going to kill you the most often with dinosaurs is Allosaurus Shepherd. That just is a fact.
Right.
If you're dying to dinosaurs, if you are dying to getting attacked by dinosaurs, chances are it's by an Allosaurus Shepherd, and also Allosaurus is the first word in its name.
Look, this is like our top 10 sheep, and you named the shepherd. What are you doing?
Sure
I don't
did.
understand it.
Well, when the shepherd can turn into a sheep and win the game as a sheep, then we can talk again. Allosaurus Shepherd is $50. It's also a green mana 1/1 elf shaman that can't be countered, and your green spells can't be countered. Pay 6 mana until end of turn. Each elf creature you control, including itself, has base power and toughness 5/5 and becomes a dinosaur in addition to its other types. It becomes a dinosaur.
Yeah, I'll give it to you. I think this is a great card, and we were using, like, for Phyrexian, we were using just, like, random cards that said Phyrexian. So, like, good. I applaud this choice. This should be on a list. I like it. It's in the dinosaur theme. It kills people with giant dinosaurs.
It's not as egregious as Ruben normally is.
I have a
I'll
Ruben
take
one
it.
later.
Oh, okay, good.
And they needed a
I'm not
$50
alone.
bill to put in Jumpstart packs. Like, that's cool too, right? Like, this card's gonna be worth sweet bank. They're gonna put in any set they want to from now on, and it'll be really expensive.
And if you're going to die to combat damage from a dinosaur, chances are it's to this card.
Goodness.
Just saying.
All right, let's go on here to number 7. For my number 7, this is just one of my favorite. It's just a great card. It's just a cool, fun, straightforward card. It's also a card that was a mistake. And when things happen like this, and look, it was a mistake maybe in a couple different ways. One is someone didn't get the memo, right? Maybe someone didn't get the memo. Or it was a mistake that they put it at uncommon, and it should have been rare the whole time. Cloud Goat Ranger, another very classic example of this. But the other classic example is Charging Monstrosaur. This card should have been rare every day of the week, and if you play in Ixalan Limited, you'll know why. Charging Monstrosaur is very simple. It's a red and 4 generic mana for a 5/5 uncommon dinosaur with trample and haste. 5 mana, 5/5, trample, haste. Those are not stats you see on uncommons. That's not uncommon world. That's rare world. And we got it on the uncommon. It was sick.
Yeah, it was definitely really big in the world of Limited. I will say it wasn't as big as it sounds, only because everything else in the set was kind of also very large.
Mhm.
There was a lot of like 3-mana 3/4s and things like that, which are just also way above rate. So double blocking this was not impossible, but it is kind of a big game ender if you happen to be ahead, had a removal on turn 4 or whatever. It gets kind of out of hand, but this thing is kind of crazy.
Yeah. When this was printed, it was confusing because I believe the most recently printed thing that reminded people of this was Reality Smasher.
Yeah.
Which I'm pretty sure was the best 5/5 trample haste that's ever been printed.
Mm-hmm.
At least by itself. I'm sure there's other there's other stuff out there like I mean, Craterhoof Behemoth counts, I guess, but Craterhoof isn't a 5/5 trample haste. It's a 90/90 trample haste.
Right.
This being an uncommon and also only requiring one color mana source was egregious.
It was a lot.
It was a lot.
It was just that, and it's one of those things where, Wizards likes cards to be recognized. And I also recognize that this kind of flew under the radar because they're like, it's just an uncommon. It's like, no, it's actually really efficient for what it does. And that's fantastic. Ruben, what's number 7?
My number 7 is a card I have cast a lot. In fact, this is a card that I've cast a lot for free after cascading into it with Bloodbraid Elf. When you were playing Jund in Standard, you cascaded into Sprouting Thrynax, and you had the time of your life.
My number 9.
Sprouting Thrynax, originally from Shards of Alara, is a black, a red, and a green for a 3/3 lizard. And when Sprouting Thrynax dies, you make 3 1/1 green sapperling creature tokens. This was the business. You played a Sprouting Thrynax and you controlled the board for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, making that many bodies is kind of a really big deal.
Oh yeah, there was a whole series of uncommons like this. There was Woolly Thoktar and stuff like that, where Wizards like, look, we're making a shard set. That was the first time they really went all in on the shards, and they could really kind of show off the creatures that they could make there, which was really neat. And this is my number 9 because I think this card is fantastic. It's not as exciting these days, but like Rock's War Monk as a 3-mana 3/4 lifelink was really exciting. A 3-mana 3/2 that makes 3 1/1s was really exciting. Yeah. So to get those kind of rates,
we got Woolly Thoktar in that cycle, Sprouting Thrynax, Rock's War Monk.
Yep. Let's see.
There was a Grixis one that was really good.
Grixis was the 4/4 flyer, right? It was just the gargoyle. Am I right about that one?
No, that was the Esper one. Tower Gargoyle.
Oh, that was Gargoyle.
Was right. Esper, and then there's
Cataract Creeper, but that's not quite the. No, that wasn't the.
I forget what the Grixis one was.
Like Firefield Ogre or something. It wasn't quite as just.
But
like,
anyway,
I am excited.
They were all extremely good uncommons that were huge payoffs for Limited.
It's true. Yeah. That said, but again, that was just a very exciting card, and we enjoyed cascading into it. Yeah. Let's move on here to number 6. Nerd Girl, what's number 6?
I do have a number 6. This is my Ruben card.
Ooh, good. I love it. I'm ready.
This Dinosaur is a 6/6 for 6 mana and has been printed 6 times.
Ooh, I love it.
So it is my number 6 for Colossal Dreadmaw.
I'm so happy it's on someone's list. I'm so happy.
I channeled my inner Ruben. Are you proud?
Very.
I love it. All
right, this is a pretty simple creature. It's a 6 mana, 4 colorless, and a green. For a creature dinosaur, it's a 6/6 with trample. Pretty simple. It's a fine curve topper in Limited, but it's kind of a meme because it was printed back to back in so many sets. I felt like the development team R&D was just like, all right, we got the shell. Let's just keep throwing in the same like cycle of 5 things for a couple of sets, and this was just always in it. So for every random set, it didn't matter the theme of the set. We just had this one idiot dinosaur at the top, and now he's kind of like in our hearts.
Yeah, so much of a meme, as a matter of fact, that it was called back on, I believe it's Phantom Dreadmaw, or Phantasmal Dreadmaw, which is the same thing except for blue, and it has this like the illusion text.
Nice.
And not only that, but it calls back the flavor text from one of the Ixalan sets, because one of the Ixalan sets had a quote from Captain Lannery's Storm that was like, it's the most terrifying thing I've ever seen. And the flavor text for Phantasmal Dreadmaw is, that was perhaps the most terrifying thing I thought I almost saw.
So for 4 mana and blue, you get it with the skulking text, I believe it's called.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's a wonderful like meme. I love this. I think it's really cool. I mean, I think also another way to put it is that, they basically found the exact right stats for the big common green creature in any random set you want. 2 green, 4 generic mana, 6/6 trample. Like Crawworm back in the day was a 6 mana 6/4, and it just didn't get there. And they kind of messed with all the numbers and changed it over time.
Right. They gave us Yavi Mileworm in Urza's Legacy, which was a 6/4 trample. Eventually, they gave us a 6/5, which was Alpha Thrynax, also a lizard, I'm pretty sure, maybe a dinosaur.
Sounds about right. From Mirrodin?
Yeah, one of the Mirrodin sets.
Right.
And eventually they were like, you know what? What are we doing? Just give him a 6/6.
Give him a 6/6, and it's fine. It's okay. And didn't
also
Dominaria have like a
Kinder
7/5 or a 7/6 that didn't have trample?
Which one? Oh, yeah, we do have a 7/6 with no trample.
Yeah. Yavimaya, something or other.
Something Baloth, who knows?
Something. But either way, they've messed with all these numbers so many times, but this is like the magical numbers, power, toughness, ability. Let's go. Ruben, what's number 6?
I have a bone to pick with one MTG nerd girl. On several occasions, you have espoused the wonders of this Magic card. And somehow it's highest on my list. It was printed as a lizard beast. It is now a dinosaur beast, so it qualifies on both fronts. Explain to me how I have Death Mist Raptor higher on my list than you have it on yours.
Because it's not seeing play anymore. So like I kind of try to rate things a little bit based on like how much I love them, how relevant they still are, and how relevant they were. And then I add those 3 things together in a point structure system, and this was my number 8.
Okay. Nice.
I do love me some Death Mist Raptor. I think it's my favorite standard deck of all time that I've ever played, paired with the other green idiot Den Protector.
Den Protector, yeah.
But yeah, it doesn't do anything anymore. I still have a playset of 4 of them next to my desk. I think it's like one of 3 cards I have a playset of just because I still love it, but it's so good.
Yeah, it's worth a whole $160 that playset.
That's right. And by the way, what it does is it's a 3/3 for colorless green, and it has Death Touch, which is kind of already good enough. But it also has Megamorph of 4 generic and a green. And whenever a permanent you control is turned face up, like Morph or with Megamorph, you can turn Death Mist Raptor. You can return Death Mist Raptor from your graveyard to the battlefield face up or face down. So it's a whole engine in and of itself.
It's a wonderful card. It was super fun to play with. And if you like the creature type decks, this was a time when Magic was good, in my opinion. We didn't have as much silly nonsense. I mean, you got to play some creatures and do some fun stuff.
You sure there wasn't some silly nonsense and some GPs that lasted like an hour and a half finals because they couldn't keep track?
The Unseen was ridiculous.
My God. Look, any Magic card in this world that says you may return it from a zone for free, and not only that, but give you an option on top of it, it's just like absolutely ridiculous. The fact, like, I remember when the moment this card was born, I'm like, okay, all right, the world's going to explode in 3, 2, and nothing. And it took like weeks for people to realize how unbelievably powerful this thing was. And that just blew my mind. And Megamorph is still a terrible name for a mechanic, and I just can't stand it.
Can I also say real quick, one of my favorite Magic memes of all time was, I don't know the judge who did it, but there was a judge who did the like this pose, and they had 3 of the jumbo Death Mist Raptor cards, so they recreated the scene from like one of the newer Jurassic Parks.
From Jurassic Park,
nice.
Yeah. And it was
Very
super
good.
cute. I love that. I'm super jelly of whoever came up with that idea.
Nice. Well, you know what we found over time, this being my number 6, is that basically all of the Ixalan and Rivals of Ixalan mythics were very undervalued, and were all going to be casual superstars in their own right for a variety of reasons. In particular, the giant monster idiots. And sometimes you just need giant monster idiots to be great. And I'm okay with $16 to $18+ giant idiots. A freaking $100 Ixalan promo of Gishath, Son's Avatar. Because it's a big idiot and I love it. It's a white, a green, and a red mana plus 5 generic. So that's 8 total for a 7/6 mythic legendary dinosaur avatar with trample, vigilance, and haste, and we ain't even done. Because whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you reveal that many cards from the top of your library. Put any number of dinosaur creature cards from among them onto the battlefield, and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Doesn't care about mana cost, how big, how small, color, whatever. It's just, if it's a dinosaur, if it's a changeling, who cares? Let's go. Everybody get in here. It's a party. And just that is throwing it.
So it's like a jumbo version of Muxus? Like a harder to cast, crazy, like similar effect, but for dinosaurs, which, you know,
the Dino Boys.
Sounds like it would make amazingly fun magic.
Yeah.
I mean, for you, at least.
Right. Look,
Let's
if
go.
I'm getting hit, if I lose to a Gishath, I'm kind of okay with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're like, wow, that's
if
incredible.
I got hit by a Gishath, first of all, that's the end of the combat step. Now you've got 35 dinosaurs in play.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Right? You know, if I lose to a Gishath, it's kind of my fault.
Right.
Which I'm okay with. And also, it's a very cinematic card. Mm-hmm. It's leading the charge, literally and figuratively. It's got haste, right? So it's doing the thing. It's not overcosted. I mean, 8 for a 7/5 feels like it's a little overcosted, but it's got
7/6.
so many lines of text.
Mm-hmm.
It's 7?
7/6.
7/6. Well, even better. Look at that.
There you go.
And yeah, I think that this card's great. This is what I want out of like a mythic dinosaur.
Like, if you paid the 8 mana and it resolved and you got to your combat step and you were able to attack and it then hit a player and that damage went through, you get all the rewards. You earned it.
Yeah.
You did it.
Yeah.
You got there. All right. Let's move on here to number 5. Nerd Girl, what's number 5?
I have a shared number 5.
Of all
Same.
the cards of all the world, I share my number 5 with you. Tell us all about it.
All right. So I put this card because it was pretty relevant in standard, and it's in an archetype and deck that I enjoy playing, and it abuses the stupid blue players, which brings me much joy. Evan, you want to tell them our number 5?
Card's sick. I love me a shifting Ceratops. Get on it. You can't stop this boy. It's right. You got 5 mana. The game is just like, is about to be over. Shifting Ceratops is 2 green, 2 generic mana for a 5/4 rare dinosaur from M20. It can't be countered. It's got protection from blue. Blue people ain't got nothing to do with this card. And for a green mana colon, it gains your choice of reach, trample, or haste until end of turn. And it's just a BA. That's just what this guy does. It's
I just picture them wearing their like Nope shirt with me with this in my hand, and I'm just like, heh, gotcha. Yeah. And then you hit them with it, and there's nothing they can do, and it brings me much joy. And I like making blue players cry themselves. To
They're
sleep.
wearing their Nope shirt, and you're wearing your Yep shirt. This thing kills Teferi, Hero of Dominaria, for a living. That's what this card does. Your opponent slams Teferi and +1s up to 5 and says, "Ha-ha, I've got mana leak." And you go, "Ha-ha, idiot. Giant green beastie," and then it dies, and then they still have to deal with it with protection from half of their deck. Shifting Ceratops is spectacular, a constant sideboard choice for a variety of reasons, and not even just against blue decks. Sometimes just having a 5-power creature that can gain haste and trample is what you need. Much less protection from blue, much less reach and vigilance. I mean, this card does so much.
It saw plenty of play in the main deck.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, in the green decks back in the day, and ultimately, it's funny. Like I now want to see the pro blue and white version, because March of Otherworldly Light exists now, and that's a hell of a magic card against this guy, which is unfortunate.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, if they're untapping, see, here's the thing though: if they're playing Teferi and untapping 2 lands, they still have to play the Otherworldly Light and have 2 cards to remove.
So 3 for 1 in themselves. To get
just
rid of it,
to deal with one of your dinosaurs. I will still take that.
I will still take it. Ruben, what's number 5?
My number 5 is not the first 7/6 on the list, and it certainly won't be the last. But this one is in the Magic the Gathering Online Vintage Cube, because it is not only a gigantic beatstick, it is also a discard outlet. And it is way above rate. And when it got printed, people were like, wait a second. That's 3 mana for a 7/6. That's gotta be a misprint. Rotting Regisaur is my next entry here at number 5. You get a 2 generic and a black for a zombie dinosaur. It's a 7/6, and at the beginning of your upkeep, you discard a card. That sounds like a drawback. Oftentimes is not. Many of the zombies are able to return themselves to play. Many of the times you're discarding something like an Unburial Rites or something that you wish to target with a reanimation spell. And oh, by the way, it's just a 7/6. Like, it just goes to town immediately.
And even if it is a drawback in your deck, which a lot of decks it was just like this plus Ember Cleaves. Right. And if they just can't deal with it, they die. And if they do deal with it, you don't need to discard, so it's fine. So it really wasn't a downside because they just were dead. Yeah. This was my number 7. I liked that it was a unique thing for black to have. Not the discard side of things, but a big green, what is essentially a green beater, very aggressive in the black deck, which I thought was really unique.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, aggressive is a way to put it. This card is a whole lot. This card is like one of those where you don't really believe it the first time you hear it. This is also one of those cards that would just like completely blow my mind in the 90s. If you had said anything about like this card's a 3-mana 7/6, you're like, okay, do you just lose at the end of the turn or something? Because that's how good they had, how bad they had to be. At the beginning of your upkeep, you discard a card, and that's the only words on this card is still kind of mind blowing. There was a developer, I'm not exactly sure exactly what it was, I don't want to misattribute it, but there was a Magic designer at one point who said, the way a lot of times the way you find sort of the card or the right, where the card sort of fits is you go too far. As you go way, you say, okay, this is way too far. So like 8/6, I guess was a bridge too far. 8/8, 8/7, bridge too far. But somehow 7/6, third of your life total, 6 toughness, just the right little knob to tweak, and it's still very exciting and very scary.
And just as we'd talked about with Gishath, a number of dinosaurs are 7/6s. It just appears to be a thing that they like to do, is print it like kind of at that size, not quite, gargantuan, 9/9, 10/10 level, but 5/5 also feels too small. Like we see Kenrith at 5/5, for example. Right. So 7/6 feels like, all right, we're in big dinosaur territory.
I'll take it. Let's move on here to number 4. Nerd Girl, what's number 4?
All right, so this is higher on my list than it probably should be. So I told you I kind of use these 3 factors to decide where it ranks on my list. This one isn't really seeing play long term, but this card did win me like $13,000. So we're going to go ahead and put it here at number 4. It is a big, green, scary, ginormous beastie, and that is Ghalta Primal Hunger.
Nice.
This is a 10 colorless green elder dinosaur that is a 12/12, and it costs X less, where X is the total power of creatures you control, and it has trample. I took this to the Mythic Invitational, and boy, oh boy, did it crush some people. You play Steel Leaf Champions on 3, and then you get to play this guy out, and sometimes there's just not a lot your opponent can do about it. This is the big dinosaur to end all dinosaurs, and you better hope they have an answer. They better hope they have an answer.
I mean, this is the card that you're glad they printed kind of into the ground, because if they hadn't, it'd have been like $1 million. So luckily it's like $2 or $3 depending on the version you want. You can get the full art version for around $8 or $9, which is nice because, again, when you're building the sweet Timmy, let's go smash with some giant monsters. This is a giant monster that always impresses.
Yeah, it always feels good. Like it's a sub game to try to get this into play. Because once it's in play, good luck. Like 12/12 is way bigger than anything else that they'd printed in standard, much less exists, right? So you've got your Steel Leaf Champions, you've got your Llanowar Elves, which also reduce its cost and can help pay for it. There's a variety of like 2-mana 3/3s that can help bring this cost down. And then you're like, here's a 2-mana 3, turn 1 Llanowar Elf, turn 2 Steel Leaf Champion, turn 3 you play like a relatively decent sized creature, and then a 2-mana Ghalta, and it's not that hard to do. It's definitely a great creature. This along with the Great Henge, in the cost reduction green, like equal to your power that you already have, the rich get richer kind of build, really has shifted the paradigm in what green stompy decks can do.
There you go. So let's move on here to the number 4 for Ruben. What you got, buddy?
My number 4 is the only hire that I have on my list this week.
Wow. All right, then. Well, for my number 4, this was a card that when I was doing some research, I was really surprised. I mean, I liked the card, don't get me wrong, but I was definitely very surprised by kind of A, how expensive it was, and B, just like, how playable it was in these casual formats. Because, back sort of when I was playing around with this card, I tried to do something silly with it. It's really cool in the way that it kind of works. It's also amazing in that there's a bunch of scenarios you can get yourself in where you can literally draw the game. You can lock the game if you resolve, for example, an Aether Flash and a Holoraptor. Holoraptor is 2 green, 6 generic mana for a mythic dinosaur. It's a 5/5 with Enrage, which means that whenever it gets dealt damage, it does a thing. Whenever Holoraptor is dealt damage, create a token that's a copy of it. So again, an Aether Flash, for example, deals 2 damage to a creature when it enters the battlefield as an enchantment, and you will lock the game because it will literally never stop. You'll just copy them forever, and they will never stop copying, and oopsie, accidentally the whole game. But I love that. I think that's great.
Yeah.
Unique things. Like, I don't like things that break the game, but I do think that those sorts of things, when they happen and we find them, they're very neat. But I don't think that as a whole, it's a good thing to be trying to do.
but of course it is. Just snap, break everything. Who cares? It's magic.
Exactly. Yeah, this is a great creature. I think that the name is clever. The art is super unique too. Like, we don't really get scale on this creature. All we see is it looking into the river and seeing its reflection, but you understand kind of what's going on here with the different eye colors and the ripple in the water. The combo with this, of course, in standard was Forerunner of the Empire, where you got to go search for your Holoraptor, and then when you ultimately played it, I think you ended up with like 16 Holoraptors the turn you played it, which is a lot. A lot of 5/5s to just say go, right? Like that's enough. That's enough Holoraptors to win. And yeah, it's a really cool card.
And I can also understand that it's, it's an $18+ mythic, because you would probably want to have multiple copies of it for its copies of itself, right? Because that's like,
right.
You want to be more thematic that way, which would be sweet. Let's move on here to number 3. My number 3 is a hire on my list, my final hire, but it's really sweet. Nerd Girl, what's number 3?
My 2 and 3 are hires. Ruben, carry us.
Oh, goodness. Ruben, what's number 3, buddy?
Well, I'm glad I get to talk about my number 3, because my top 3 were going to be my top 3. Sometimes I just know what my top 3 are going to be. And this week I knew, based on how good the cards are, how ubiquitous they were in competitive play, how much they appeared in cubes, how much they appear in commander decks, I just knew that these were going to be my 3. Somehow this card didn't win a Pro Tour. I don't exactly know how, but had this card won a Pro Tour, I'm pretty sure that it would have been my number 1. Interestingly, I don't think a dinosaur has won a Pro Tour. So this is as close as I think I've seen.
So Wizards are good on that.
Yeah, exactly. Wizards, we need Pro Tour winning dinosaurs. This card was all over the place. It was in mid-range decks, it was in aggro decks, it was in control decks, it was in sideboards, it was in main decks. It was in the best deck of its age and had no synergy with the rest of the deck, just because thrashing Brontodon just did work.
Nice.
Number 9?
Number 9 for her.
There you go. Thrashing Brontodon. Generic green for a 3/4 dinosaur. We're already getting a 3/4 for 3 mana, which is above rate. 4 toughness on 3 mana. Pay a generic and sacrifice it, destroy target artifact or enchantment. You get a main deck naturalize effect. In a world where most of the time being able to deal with problematic artifacts and enchantments is going to be resolved in your sideboard or with like a 1 or a 2 of, this was a 4 of in mid-range creature decks, right? We had our our Jade Light Ranger decks that were just like, here's some beefy creatures. Oh, by the way, I can also kill your immortal son.
Yeah, Thrashing Brontodon is great in every format. It didn't really matter, limited, constructed. We were seeing it in historic. This wasn't rotated out yet at the start of Embercleave, right?
I don't.
M20.
So this was in Core Set 20, Core Set 2021, and Rivals.
Yeah, it was during. It was there. It was legal through all that, right? So it was in Rivals through Core Set 20 through 21. So it was there at some point during most of those eras. But, the fact was, this was a rate that we weren't used to when Rivals of Ixalan showed up. It was, 3 mana for a 3/4. And sweet upside? And it's not one green sacrifice it, it's just one generic sacrifice it. This isn't a rare, for example, so they're not trying to squeeze you on the pocketbook for a card that's really fantastic, goes in a whole bunch of decks. And again, it is also fascinating, this thing that went a Pro Tour for as much crazy play it saw at the time. So there you go. Let's move on here to number 2. Ruben, what's number 2?
Before I talk about my number 2, I want to talk about what came before my number 2 so that you get a little bit of history.
Oh boy.
By the way, this is the only Pro Tour winning lizard.
Oh, nice.
So this is the only lizard that has ever won a Pro Tour. No dinosaurs have won a Pro Tour, so this is the only time that anything on our list could possibly have won a Pro Tour. And it was absolutely a staple of the deck that it won in. Okay. Way back in Tempest, there was a creature that was printed named rootwalla. Rootwalla was a generic and a green for a 2/2, and it had an activated ability that said, pay a generic and a green, and it gets +2/+2 until end of turn. Activate this ability only once each turn. Then we got a plated rootwalla later in Exodus, which was the same thing, same ability, except for that it was a 3/3 and it got +3/+3, and it was a 5/5. Then we got Frostwalla. Frostwalla was a snow lizard from Modern Horizons that was very similar. It got +2/+2 when you paid a snow mana. Activate only once each turn. We also got a frilled Sandwalla. It was a 1/1 for 1. We got a blazing rootwalla. We got all these rootwallas, but really the winner is Basking Rootwalla. Basking Rootwalla is a green mana for a 1/1 lizard that says, pay a generic and a green, it gets +2/+2 until the end of the turn, activate only once each turn, and it has madness of 0. When you discard this card, you discard it into exile, and when you do, cast it for its madness cost or put it into your graveyard. Anytime anything is free, things break. So this was definitely part of the reason why Survival of the Fittest was banned in Legacy. This was part of Ken Ho's winning blue-green Madness deck, where you would play this alongside things like Aquamoeba and Wild Mongrel, along with other Madness cards like Circular Logic, to be able to generate insane advantage.
Madness is an interesting mechanic, and I think it makes for some unique gameplay and some very exciting decks. Based on what you get to recycle and do a bunch of things, it gives you a lot more resources. Sometimes the cards are a little bit under rate, but that's because you discard them to redraw and you still get an ability. So it adds an interesting layer for them to balance around, and I do love any card like that.
Yeah, there's a real beauty to Basking Rootwalla in terms of it's free, but it's a free 1/1. It's a Memnite, right? But it's got that sweet ability, which does kind of put it over the top. Blazing Rootwalla, thankfully, is on Arena, which is great because I've played it in the Madness deck, and it's wonderful. Only 1 mana to activate its ability is definitely worth it, which is great. And, the whole Rootwalla family, I want more Rootwallas. I enjoy Madness as a mechanic. And also for those sort of newer players, back in the day, a lot of times the sets would come out with 1 to 3-ish decks kind of pre-built for you. And now Psychotog was a mistake, and they didn't expect Psychotog to be Psychotog. But by and large, the Madness deck was kind of packaged and ready to go for you with cards like this ready to go, and Wild Mongrel and stuff like that. Circular Logic, again, all those things just stuck together at the right different mana cost to kind of build you this deck that's based around the new set. They don't do that anymore, thankfully. But, you can kind of see what used to be back in the day.
And if you want to see what the animal Rootwalla is based on, Google Chuckwalla. A Chuckwalla is basically a little tiny iguana, and they're adorable.
Aww.
Very nice. Well, for my number 2 here, this is a big giant monster. It's a big giant monster pain. This is a big giant monster pain that I'm pretty sure I have in like some random deck box in my closet, because when Ruben and I played at the pre-release and we played after hours, I want to say we like drafted rares, and this is one of the rares that I got, and it turns out it's the most expensive card in the set, most expensive card that is in any of this creature type. It's $30+ for God's sakes. The Judge gift card is over $100 for Zakama Primal Calamity. This thing is a monster and is a number 3 for Nerd Girl, which is great because it's right up there at the top, which is sweet. This card is dumb. It just does dumb things, and I love it. It's a green, a white, a red, and 6 generic mana, so it's 9 mana for a 9/9 mythic, legendary, elder dinosaur, and I cannot tell you how many people didn't give a damn about this card in Standard. Like, this card was like $3 or $4 tops, and it was no one cared. But back in the day, they didn't understand, because this thing's got vigilance, reach, and trample, and when it enters the battlefield, if you cast it, you untap all lands you control, and it's got 3 3-mana abilities. It costs 9 3-3-mana abilities. Let's go. For a red and 2 generic mana, it deals 3 damage to target creature. That's a colon. That's not a tap. For a green and 2 generic mana, it destroys target artifact or enchantment. And for a white and 2 generic mana, you gain 3 life. It does everything.
Yeah.
I think that this was not a thing in Standard because it was just too expensive. I think the format could deal with it too easily. It was a little too fast for this. But also, this was printed quite a while ago. Now, I know EDH has been a thing for a while, but really it's been seeing a pretty big renaissance like recently, and growing in popularity. So it doesn't surprise me that this has gone from a $4 card to a $40 card because of EDH. Also, I want to say this is the reason you get to 9 in Momir. As is one of the bigger reasons. Yeah. So and then you just stop, and then you just keep going at 9 hoping to hit this thing. Definitely a crazy, stupid $40 card.
Like, it's a reason to play mountains and your forests and your plains and in your Momir deck, is so you can play this.
Yeah, I mean, especially in Commander, destroying an artifact and an enchantment is so ridiculous. Just for free, just for having this creature be your commander. Dealing 3 damage is insane in Momir. That's absurd. And oh, by the way, it may have taken you some amount of resources, and life totals are a resource, to be able to get to 9 mana. So being able to recover some of that is no small feat either.
Yeah, this card is sweet, and it's just a legendary elder dinosaur that's awesome and dope, and a mythic from a small set. It had all the things working for it to be really expensive. Yep. So let's move on here to number 1. Ruben, what's number 1?
My number 1 makes me so happy that it gets to me to be my number 1. I'm not sure that putting a card at number 1 has brought me such joy. I am desperately and madly in love with this card. There's only one card in either of Dinosaur or Lizard that won a Pro Tour. There are 2 dinosaurs or lizards that are in the cube. I've already referenced the Rotting Regisaur. I've already talked about Basking Rootwalla. This creature is in the cube, and it's also was banned. It was banned. It's the only one. It's the only dinosaur or lizard that's ever been banned. And now we finally get to have justice. Justice for rampaging Ferocidon.
Oh my god. Yep, number 2 for Nerd Girl. My number 3.
It's a very good Magic card. Rampaging Ferocidon is a 2 generic and a red dinosaur with Menace from Ixalan. It's a 3/3 that says that players can't gain life, and whenever another creature enters the battlefield, Rampaging Ferocidon deals 1 damage to that creature's control.
This card doesn't look like it's as dumb, I guess, as it certainly is. It was also like pre-banned as like and expected to be a problem, so they got rid of it like basically prematurely, and so there was no justice for Ferocidon in that they just thought it was bad, but it never got to show it was bad. One of the very few times in which I could not believe Wizards would go back on their "you must show it's busted" philosophy, because they did it so many times throughout the years. I'm talking like 10 plus times. I can literally say, I was like, Wizards R&D person, are you sure this is a thing that's okay? And they're like, show me it's busted. Show me it's busted. This thing was never shown to be busted, and nowadays it's in historic, and I'm okay with that, so let's go.
I got to play it recently with one of the like special events, which was really cool. It shut down all the life gain decks. It's super fun. I'm a bit of a fangirl over this card. Again, I like the creature decks, the smoosher face type decks, green, red, white things, and this does everything I wanted to do. And it also just like has it's good enough on its own, and then when you get the good matchup for it, you feel like $1 million.
Yeah,
it's so good.
Absolutely. Yeah. The other thing that I feel bad about Ferocidon, and I this is another reason why I specifically want justice for this card, is that sometimes you'll get a creature that you're like, very clearly this creature is good, but at this exact casting cost, there is a better creature for the deck. And that happened with this card with Goblin Chain Whirler. Right? It happened with Desecration Demon. Desecration Demon had to wait on the bench for a while. Right. It happened with Ripjaw Tyrant, which I don't think we even talked about in this episode. Like, there are just creatures that are like, that are very, very, very good, but there's just Chain Whirler in front of this card, right?
Ripjaw Raptor.
And then, Ripjaw Raptor. Right. And then, when this card finally got to have its moment in the sun, they banned it.
They killed it.
Because other cards were banned.
Because so it's going to be a problem. And you're like,
I'm
really?
sad, but at least I got to have it as number 1 on my list.
Fine. Well, through the process of elimination, you're number 4 and Nerd Girl and I's number 1 that we share, because this card is fantastic and I love it. This is a card that, like, it's still worth a good $8+, but back in the day, man, this thing was like, what, $25, $30, maybe more at one point or other. It was really dumb. You needed a card that ended games, and I appreciate cards that end games. It's got the right numbers. We talked about that magical power and toughness, and it's just scary. And few things put the fear into the control deck like what card, Nerd Girl?
Carnage Tyrant. This 6 mana, 4 colorless green creature dinosaur.
Yeah.
Carnage Tyrant can't be countered. It has trample and hexproof, and it is a 7/6.
Oof.
Whoa. So if you have no board clears, you're about to get stomped, and this thing is hard to deal with.
You have Settle the Wreckage, or you have the Wrath, or it's over. Like, it's generally those options.
Can't be countered hexproof is great. What a lovely combination of things. They gave it to us on, like, Scragnoth and Quagnoth, but they never gave it to us on a good creature. It was always like a 5 mana 3/4 or a 6 mana 4/5, right?
And there was some questions, right? There was like, is this really good enough? And it's like, have you resolved this card?
6 mana 7/6. We're good. We're Gucci. We're good. That's a good set of numbers. This was at the top of every mid-range, every sort of like any deck that had green and didn't necessarily combo. This was the win condition. Control, mid-range, didn't really matter.
Like, I think there's a question of, do you want this to be in a format? Is this the, like, should this be the best creature at the top of whatever your curve is? The Ava Bruck card right now. The
right.
One, I can't remember the Caretaker, I think it is.
Avabruck, yeah.
Yeah, and you're just like, is that okay? Should that be what the best thing is at that mana cost for that color? And I'm kind of okay with it, in that it defines that it's big, it's scary, it's going to destroy any of the control decks, and that's what I want big green finishers to do.
Yeah.
So I'll take it.
I want the best big creature to be green in every standard format. And I want the best big green creature to be a dinosaur a lot of the time. Like, it can it could also be a Hydra. Like, I'm okay with that. It can be a beast. I'm okay with that. But if it's a dinosaur, I feel like my life is just better.
Yeah, everything's right in the world.
I think that's why, like, at least from a limited perspective, I kind of think that's why Dreadmaw Colossus got, like, whatever its name is, kept getting reprinted, because it was like, this just makes sense. It is a giant green dinosaur, and that's kind of what the people want.
Right. Things that just make sense about dinosaurs. Exactly right.
Well, that was our top 10 lizard and dinosaur cards. You'll see them on screen right now for your review. Take a look at my list, Nerd Girl's list, Ruben's top 10, and we want to hear from you about what card we did not talk about, and we'll select our favorite to win $50 worth of anything at CoolStuffInc.com. But before we go, I want to thank my co-host. Thank you, Nerd Girl.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you, Ruben.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how do you think this episode went?
Very scaly. Very scaly. monstrous.
Yes.
As we move to our final slide, I want to thank our sponsor, CoolStuffInc.com, our co-sponsors, CardHoarder.com and UltraSleeves.com, my co-host, MTG Nerd Girl and Ruben Bressler, you guys for watching and listening. I hope you support us at Patreon.com/MagicMikes. Follow, like, tweet, favorite, share, subscribe to everything social that tells people we exist. Catch us online at Twitch.tv at Magic Mikes, on Twitter at Magic Mikes Cast, our Magic Mikes subreddit, and like the Magic Mikes page on Facebook. Or join us here next week, same time, same place, for another episode of Magic Mikes. Good night, everybody.